Welcome back to Reliable Sources. I'm Brian Stelter. This week, a woman named Reality Winner became the first person to be arrested and charged with leaking since President Trump took office. The controversial Espionage Act is in use here. Winner has pleaded not guilty. Today, she remains in jail and could face up to 10 years in prison and/or a $250,000 fine. But this goes much deeper than one case, as sources tell me that U.S. intelligence agencies have referred several recent leaks to the Justice Department for possible criminal investigation, possibly as many as 6 referrals. The DOJ declined to comment when I asked, but intelligence reporters, like my next guest, say they can tell that leak investigations are underway. They say they know it because their sources are feeling the heat. Joining me now, a reporter who's no stranger to being under government surveillance. Adam Goldman is a reporter with the New York Times covering the FBI national security. He had his phone records seized by the DOJ under the Obama administration. That was back in 2012 when he was at the Associated Press. Adam, good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
There's been a lot of attention up until now about the Obama administration's record about investigating leaks. They prosecuted more leakers, alleged leakers, than all other prior presidents combined. Now we have the first case of the Trump era. What do you make of the Reality Winner case? What does it say about the Justice Department's apparent crackdown?
Well, I think it says a couple of things. One, that this administration under Jeff Sessions and Rod Rosenstein are going to take these leaks seriously, and they're going to prosecute them if they can. The Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, has already showed an inclination to go after leakers. He prosecuted
And the President has told them to.
And the President has told them to, and the President has been very vocal about that, and the Justice Department and the FBI have heard that. Is this the opening salvo of a number of leak prosecutions? It could be. We'll just see how far this administration and this Justice Department wants to go.
The Reality Winner is charged with sending a top-secret NSA document to the Intercept website. Both she and the Intercept were criticized for sloppy behavior that made it easier for the government to figure out that she might have done this. Do you think the Intercept made some mistakes here by, for example, showing the top-secret document to the NSA, trying to verify it ahead of time?
I'm not going to sit here and criticize the Intercept for trying to provide the American people important information about Russian meddling. What I will say is what happened was a cautionary tale, and all journalists, and especially editors running newspapers that deal with leaks, especially involving classified information, have to think very carefully about what they want to publish, what documents they want to publish, how they want to describe these documents, if they want to share these documents with the government, and they need to be thinking about ways to protect the people providing them information. They have to be
So what are you
extremely
doing differently? We spoke earlier this week, and you used terms like source protection, operational security. This sounds like spycraft.
Well, I'll take a page out of the government's playbook. You know, I don't talk about sources or methods, but I will say this. You know, I had my record seized, phone record seized in an investigation that the government conducted against somebody they believe had leaked me information. So I've been very careful for years now since that happened, how I handle information and how I contact people. You know, there are ways to protect sources. I would raise one point about the tip lines that, you know, all these newspapers and other media outlets have set up.
Yeah, they set up and they say, you can contact us secretly and provide us information. Is there a problem with that?
You know, there was one glitch in that. You know, if it's anonymous, then, and you can't speak to the other person on the line, it's difficult to take steps to protect them.
And that's what the Intercept says happened. They didn't know who this person was that slipped them a document.
Right, right. So it's difficult to protect them. They didn't know. But like I said before, you know, you have to think seriously. Look, if you're going to publish a top secret document, that's the clearest evidence yet to the government that classified information has been made public, and that is a roadmap to who might have handled it. So you have to think seriously about what you're going to publish, and do you want to give the government that roadmap? Listen, hold on. Reporters are enamored with these top secret documents, but we don't always need we don't need to publish the top secret documents to tell the stories. And typically, before the age of these massive leaks, we're talking to people and they're telling us things, and we're not providing documents, and it's very difficult for the government to figure out who might have told us what.
Help me square a circle here. On the one hand, I've been hearing from intelligence reporters that sources are feeling the chill, that they can sense that leak investigations are happening. They're wary of talking. On the other hand, there's an extraordinary number of stories being attributed to anonymous sources about administration incompetence and about classified information. Are both of those things true at the same time? There's sources that are afraid to talk, but also a lot of them?
Yeah, I think both those things can be true at the same time. You know, the government is clearly taking efforts to find leakers. I mean, the FBI itself is looking for people within, and they're looking for people outside the FBI. You know, we know that. That's really no secret to the reporters doing this type of reporting. But both those things can be true at the same time.
And what about the series of stories from anonymous sources that have proved to be wrong? James Comey this week, under oath, said the New York Times had a story from February 14th that was wrong in the main. He didn't go into detail, and the Times says it stands by the story. But he said that story was wrong. How do you all react to that when you've got a big government official saying the story was false?
Well,
I like it wasn't your story. It wasn't one of your bylines, but still.
No, I had a contributing line on it. I like the way the New York Times responded to it. I wish the government would do more of this. We responded with transparency. And the 3 reporters who were involved in that story wrote a story laying out what we knew to date, backing up that reporting. You know, Comey also called a Washington Post story nonsense. So, you know, we feel, the Times feels very comfortable on what reported, and we laid out to readers what it is we knew, and we let the readers decide.
Other cases of anonymous source credibility issues. Earlier in the week, CNN had a story saying Comey's going to get up there and he's going to testify that Trump, what was it? Comey said that Trump was not under investigation. I'm messing it up, Adam. Sorry. I think the CNN story essentially said Comey's going to get up there and say, Trump, I never told him he wasn't under investigation. And then Comey got up there on Thursday and said, yes, I did tell him he wasn't under investigation personally. So CNN had to correct that story. MSNBC had Brian Williams on the air saying, I've got a source who told me I'm not sure Trump knew where Qatar is and whether we had troops in Qatar. Now Brian Williams stands by that story, but there's questions the White House has about it. My point is, in both these cases, anonymous source credibility coming under fire. Is this a problem for journalists as we try to convince our audience to believe us?
No, I think when we make mistakes, we need to correct them. But I will say, look, we are operating with speed that I haven't seen before as a reporter. I mean, there's such urgency to get these stories out, and you know, in a normal atmosphere, it could take a long time to do one of these stories. I mean, my colleagues and I broke a story about how the CIA's informant network had been decimated in China. You know, we did that under the radar, and it wasn't in the media, and it took a long time to nail that story down. Look, there are certainly perils with using anonymous sources. It's up to editors and reporters to be humble and say, you know what, we don't know everything about this. We have to approach this in humility. We have to be under the assumption that we don't know, we don't have a holistic view of what's going on. I mean, that's what's really important here, and reporters need to tread cautiously and carefully.
And readers need to be skeptical. They need to understand we're seeing pieces of a puzzle, not the entire puzzle all at once.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I like to say, and I've said this repeatedly, and I've said this in public, you know, newspapers need to be careful. And, you know, there's no gun to our head. Nobody says you have to publish this story. We find this repeatedly in breaking news, right? News outlets get it wrong because it's the fog of war. We shouldn't, you know, of course, we shouldn't treat these longer term investigations any differently.
Adam, thanks for being here.